The Order of Light presents We Are the Disclosure, Episode 12, with our guest Alison Caltrider as we explore the extraterrestrial phenomena. Now is the time for those with experiences to speak. We are not waiting for the disclosure. We are the disclosure.
Hello, everyone. I'm Robert Earl White.
And hi, I'm Josh Miota.
With our special guest, Alison Caltrider.
Hi.
And together,
we are the disclosure. Hello, welcome, everyone. Tonight we have a very special guest, Alison Caltrider, coming from Maryland. She has had some incredible experiences going back to her childhood, some, experiences and encounters with beings from other dimensions and part of this universe all over the place. Along with that, in later years, she's had some regression. She's been able to find out more about her connection to all of this, explaining those strange experiences that have happened to her when she was a child. So, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
So happy to have you here. So, Alison, when did this all start for you? And when was your first experience to the point where you said, something's not right here and there's something else going on that people are unaware of? When did that all start for you?
It started with a nightmare that I thought I kept having when I was probably 6 or 7 years old. And it was so vivid. And I just kept remembering it for years. And there was a lot of emotion every time I would think about this so-called nightmare. And I would see it so vividly in my head, my heart would start to race and I'd feel panicky. And then I started to realize, at this, 50 years later, that there's something going on. It wasn't just a nightmare. And even as a child, though, as far back as I remember being 2, 3 years old, I was just super hyper aware of everything. And I had a lot of experiences. I would see spirits. I would see things that nobody else saw. So I was kind of geared up from the get-go. And I had this sense, I remember being 3 or 4, running around the front yard in the sunlight, thinking this sense of joy inside of me that I was here for something extraordinarily special, that something was coming. And I had so much joy in me about it, that I came here for something special.
Mm-hmm.
And I never understood what this, you go through life and you get ups and downs and, all kind of things. And then you're, where's the special? And it just seemed like now I know, because it's all coming out,
So you were in tune, even from a young age, almost like a medium, you were able to see, spirits and other energies and things like this. Going back, you said that first nightmare, what was all of that about?
I remember the room was dark, and I remember crouched down next to my dresser. I was trying to hide from these things in my room, and they were, now you gotta understand, this is probably 1966.
Wow.
Somewhere around there.
How old were you?
7.
7. Okay. Wow.
And I remember crouching down next to my dresser trying to hide, and I saw them. There were I know there were 3, there maybe were 4, really small, short little guys with the big heads and, the big dark eyes. And it was weird because there was a sound in the air, and I can't describe it. Almost like you're underwater and you're hearing sound, weird disjointed sound coming through water.
I understand. Like
So
when you go
Mhm.
underwater at a party, people are on the outside making noise, yelling, and that weird muffled underwater sound.
yep, that's what it,
Huh.
that's what it was like. And they were holding something in their hands, their little hands, whatever they were. Um, and they were like moving around. They were trying to find me, and I was trying to hide. I look back, and I knew this wasn't the first go round. It's like this, to be afraid of them, to be hiding from them. I knew that this wasn't the first time.
Yeah. And can you describe what you were seeing uh around like the room or craft or whatever?
There was no, I didn't see a craft, but every now and then I'd lay on my bed at night and I would hear this loud pulsating sound outside my window.
Hmm.
Just this big, loud pulsating sound. But my bed was up against, it was a Cape Cod style house. I was upstairs, so there was a window, and then there was a wall that came down over my bed like that. And I was across from the bed when I was hiding, and I saw them, one like standing in front of the window because I could see the outline of them, and then there were two more, one over in front of the bed and one over to the side of the dresser, and they were there to get me.
Could you describe the tool or the shape of it at least?
They were holding something, and it was like it had a light on it, almost like a flashlight, I guess. I don't know. They were holding something trying to find me.
And it was illuminated somehow.
Something, yeah. And
Very interesting.
it's hard to,
Allison,
it's a long time ago.
can you remember their fingers at all or their hands? How many fingers they had?
No, I don't remember that in that instance, but I would lay in bed at night and these faces, one after the other, would come up to me. And when they got so close, they would like disintegrate. And they looked like half animal, half human. They might have little spiky ears come out to the side, or they would have like more human eyes, but like more of an animal type face. But their little hands would be up. And I can't remember how many fingers, but they would have like look half human hand, but like with a claw on the end, or long fingers, something like that. And I wasn't
Interesting.
afraid because they just like they would get so close and they couldn't get any closer. I think I was being protected.
Wow. And Josh, you know what I'm thinking about? Jim Cork's story
Yeah.
of the hand and the sheet, very similar to that. Wow, Allison. That must have been pretty scary because you had this memory. You were 7 years old. Did you tell anybody about this?
I told my mother. My mother knew. She said she knew when I was 2 that I was different because she says I'd walk through a room and the lights would flicker.
Whoa. And did she have any abilities?
She did. She was clairvoyant. Um, I don't think hers was as developed as mine was, but she was very ahead of her time. So luckily I had her because she didn't tell me I was nuts. You know, she understood. She told me, Allison, you're special, you're different, and not to be afraid because you're protected. Because I would look up, I would see this bright light around me all the time.
Hmm.
And she said, you're protected. That's why they can't get so close and they just disintegrate. They can't get any closer.
So did your mother see those same sorts of beings that you saw?
No, she didn't
No.
see them, but that poor woman, I was always coming down from my room in the middle of the night because there was something in my room. There was one time, broad daylight, I was laying in bed, took a nap, and I wake up and this giant standing over me. His head, the ceiling was 8 foot. His head was like to the ceiling.
Wow.
And he had a very large head, long, thin body. And he looked at me and he looked like he was moving in water. And he was leaning down and he was about to pick me up. And I jumped out of that bed and I ran around the other side and I went to the door and I turned around and looked at him. He just stood up and he just kind of with that water fluid movement, because you could kind of see through him. He just looked at me and just stood there and watched. And I went downstairs to my mother. I said, "There's a giant in my room."
You weren't sticking around to find out what it wanted.
Oh no!
Being so young, wow. And
Yeah.
your father, was he aware of this?
My father was a brilliant man. He was an engineer. He had a very high IQ, but he was very left-brained.
Mm-hmm.
I could never. He became more open as the years went on, but back in those days, he was a very kind of. I didn't discuss stuff like that with him.
Yeah,
No.
understandably. And did you go to school and stuff and try to talk to your friends about some of these experiences?
I tried because, when I would go to school, first of all, I never felt like a child. In my mind, I was never a child, and I couldn't wait to grow up out of this little body.
Mm-hmm.
I would look at people and they would talk to me like a child, and I was like, you don't know what you're talking to. I'm not, I'm in this little body, but I'm aware. And so I go to school and I was often bullied. The kids made fun of me. I was bullied a lot.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, and I had problems, dyslexia. I was very artistic, creative. I could do anything artistic, musical. I was playing the piano at 2. But
wow, I want to mention something. Josh and I, reoccurring theme, dyslexic.
Yeah.
So many people I've talked to that are mediums, abductees, contactees, spiritual.
Starseeds.
Starseeds. It's funny. We all were dyslexic when we were children.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that strange? Wow. And different in a good way though, but misunderstood by the rest of the world who isn't on that, frequency yet. It's hard. It's very hard. Sorry you had to go through that.
Back in the 60s. When you're a little kid in the 60s, they didn't talk about different learning abilities, all that. You sat in a classroom lined up, and if you didn't go by the way they taught the program, you got left out, and then the self-esteem I had such a sense of wonder and joy inside of myself. And when I got it, I couldn't wait to go to school. I wanted to learn. And when I got there, it's just like, I slowly just kind of disappeared into this little shell and thought I was just the dumbest kid on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
Because I couldn't, but then I could create things, and I could hear music, and I could draw and see a whole different world, but it didn't fly in the 60s. As much as the 60s was, a lot of a revolution of type atmosphere, it was still very very grounded in very different kind of thinking in those days.
Yeah.
A lot has
and
changed
even today, in the 90s, Josh and I, we weren't going around talking about these things.
No.
Yeah, 90s it was still little.
And even in early 2000s, even though I knew of these things, due to my job and what I was doing, I was involved with the church. I knew better than to talk about extraterrestrials because you get shunned and people think you're losing your marbles and things like this. Is really, really hard. And to be that young and to be that aware in a world that was completely clueless, it must have been something that has really built your character. Am I right?
It has. I being an extremely sensitive little kid, I'm a Cancer too, so I'm my dad used to say you got to get a thicker skin, and I've definitely done that. Now I'm still sensitive, but I've learned how to, I'm okay with myself now. It's taken a long, long time, and I feel sorry for kids that are going through this, because when you're little, you don't really have the life experiences to help, get you stronger.
And then, as you said, you just turn yourself off. That's what I did. You become socially awkward because you don't know how to relate to people. Mm-hmm. And when you do try to relate to them, they think you're insane. So you just go within. It's for the best in the long run. because you get that thick skin. But at the time, oh, it sucks. It's awful. So, Allison, you're a kid, you're experiencing so many different things. Clearly, gray extraterrestrials, other dimensional beings, half animal, half humanoid kind of things with pointy ears, spirits, giants, things like that. Once you start to, get older, say your 20s, your 30s, how do these experiences develop as you continue to have them?
Um, I continued to have some, but it kind of, from compared to when I was a child, it was an everyday occurrence. It was like I was living literally in two worlds as a
Mm-hmm.
child. And of course, as you mature and you get in your teens, and I think at 18, though, I started having really bad anxiety, panic attacks at 3 in the morning. And I figured that's when they'd probably come and get me at 3 in the morning. And then into my 30s, trying to remember, that's when, I was married to a guy who was a pilot, and he was away, 3, 4 nights a week. And I would have these horrible, we lived on a farm, so we were out in the middle of nowhere. I'd be all by myself out there, and I'd wake up with these horrible panic attacks. I mean, just terrifying. Like, I felt like I was going to die. But I never had them when I was not alone. I only had them when I was alone. So that tells me something there, that I was alone when something happened to me. I was very alone.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was having female issues, lots of pain. And then in the middle of the night, it's like I would have my period 2 weeks before, and then I woke up and I was in labor.
Labor.
I was in
Wow.
labor. I was having labor pains. And I spent 3 to 4 hours in excruciating pain, just jumping up, going to the bathroom, jumping up, back and forth, back and forth. And what was coming out of me, I just had my period 2 weeks before that. And what was coming out of me was something
else. Wow. And you said, middle of the night you just started having these things, and there was no way you were pregnant enough by timing of your menstrual to even have those sorts of
and on birth
contractions.
control, like strict birth control. It was something. I mean, when it happened to me at the time, your logical mind wants to say, well, this, and this, but when I look back on it, it was just, it didn't make any sense.
Wow.
And
Wow.
then I'm trying to remember all this that happened. Then I found out in my 40s that, I was hemorrhaging on, I had a hemorrhagic cyst in my left ovary, and they went in to take that out. And when they went in, they said that I had this thing growing in me. It was taking over my whole abdominal cavity. It had its own blood supply.
Wow. And you went to the doctors, they found this hemorrhage cyst.
I was always anemic. I was for no reason. I was always anemic. And I was bleeding internally with that. Actually, that saved my life, because if they hadn't found this thing that was growing in me, it would have killed me.
Oh, wow. And you said it had its own blood supply on it.
It had veins in it.
Wow.
And it brings Josh and I
wrapped around everything.
So
Doctor had
like
to go in and try to cut it out.
So they had to medically remove it.
Oh yeah, I saw pictures of it.
It was around disgusting. All of your organs, all mixed up in there.
And see, they told me I probably had endometriosis because I had so much pain. But when I told the doctor before surgery, I said, just take everything out. I'm just done. Take everything out. I can't stand this anymore. And I said, he says, your uterus was fine. So whatever this thing was, it was just
exterior. It was exterior
around everything, my back behind my liver, all around my colon. I mean, it was just nasty. I just don't know how something like that could be growing in me. You couldn't tell from the outside. I was as thin as a rail, but
And you said you had some hemorrhaging and cyst and scarring in there as well.
I had a hemorrhagic cyst in my left ovary. They had to remove that.
It's like, how do these things happen? It's, a
I
lot
don't
of
know.
these stories.
I
And
just, the thing was, when I went into surgery, I looked at him and I said, "Take it out." Something in me just said, "Take everything out. Take it. I don't care. Just take everything out." That's how. I just wanted it out of me. I didn't even know that was in me, but I just
yeah,
wanted everything out of me.
yeah. And to after you had this procedure and you had that removed, did you have other experiences with those gray extraterrestrials that you saw when you were a kid, or did it kind of stop?
I didn't have that anymore
Really?
until recently. I wake up and I see these big heads looking at me. They're just like looking at me. They're not
Hmm.
doing anything really. They're just looking at me. And now um, I know enough to say I don't consent.
Yeah.
Leave
It's
me
like
alone.
cutting that off right there.
Can you
Wow.
describe the heads for us?
Um, they look typical gray, but the ones I've seen recently, they're like pointed chin, and the head is really like that with the big
Bulbous.
eyes.
More
And there's different
bulbous.
size ones. There's younger ones, there's bigger ones, there's smaller ones. They're just like looking
And
at me.
like what you were saying with this underwater effect, it's this dematerialization, you know,
Mhm.
they're phasing through dimensional frequencies and vibrations. So
Uh-huh.
when you're seeing these, it's almost like a shimmering light effect of
Hmm.
looking at something underwater where they're still transparent because they're just tapping in. It seems that explains a lot of the things you saw when you were younger too. The same kind of dimensional phase, because you said you could partially see through a lot of these beings.
Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. And unfortunately, with all those issues you were having, this mysterious thing wrapped all around your organs. And of course, I'm sure the doctors just throw it away. They cover up so much in the medical field. But fortunately, you were able to see it with your own eyes,
I
which,
saw he showed me photos. I know, this is back in 2006, so I didn't ask to, back then we just didn't ask to keep the photos. I wish I had kept them because what was inside me was absolutely horrendous.
what do you think? Uh, what do you think it was?
I I have no idea,
Yeah.
but it
Do,
had
Right.
its own survival.
do you
It
think
just
that whatever was going on within there and your uterus and all this, do you think that plays some sort of connection to some of the beings you were seeing and their interest in you?
possibly, I'm not going to rule it out. I mean,
Yeah.
I have no proof that it is, but then I don't have any proof that it isn't.
Have you ever had any visions or experiences where you have seen like children or anything like that?
No, but you know what? You just reminded me. When I was little, I would have these experiences where it was right like before I think I was consciously awake. I was literally hooked up to something with all these strings were all attached to me, and I was trying to get loose. I was being, yeah, it's like almost like I was a marionette and I had all these strings attached to me and I couldn't get free. And I would be struggling and crying and trying to get loose. And then I would open my eyes and I'd be awake. but it was real. It wasn't a dream. Something was happening to me on some other level. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Some
Um,
sort of testing. What it sounds like is you experience, a bunch of wires or
yeah,
tubes, fluids,
yeah,
things, but
yeah.
your brain at that age interprets it as, a puppet. What else would you know?
I just was attached to something, and all these strings, things coming into me. They were tubes. They were long, and it was just everywhere I moved. I couldn't get free.
So clearly some sort of interest, which may explain some of these abnormal things. They could have very well been using you for, hybridization. They could have been experimenting with you. They were obviously interested in you if they were coming into your room with that device with the light on it. They had an interest. And what do you think that interest was? Is it because you're a medium and you're more prone to seeing, so they do that, or do you think it's another reason?
I don't know for sure, but I always had a sense since the get-go, as far as back as I can remember, and I had some pretty intense thoughts as a child. I knew I was here for something. That I knew I was different than the average.
Mm-hmm.
I just had a sense that I was, and I never, even then, I never felt like I fit in here, like I wasn't here. I wasn't from here, like I was just here from somewhere else. Even then, I
Uh,
never,
and the inner
never,
knowing, you had this inner knowing, right?
and I didn't like being in a child's body. I couldn't wait for it to grow up. I didn't like being a child. Didn't like anything about it. I just wanted the body to grow, to catch up with me.
Mm-hmm.
So
Old
I think,
soul, old soul in a young vessel.
yeah, now I'm old. I'm an old soul in an old vessel. So
uh,
Hey,
so,
Allison, when you were a child, could you see auras?
yes,
Um,
yeah,
can you still see auras, or did that dissipate over
it
time?
dissipated some. I mean, if I try to focus on it, I can see the light around people. Um, I'm more intuitive now. I get like things that come into my head. Um, and I'm pretty, usually if I give advice and something comes to me recently, I helped somebody with a family member that had a health issue, and it came to me exactly what was wrong, and none of the doctors were doing what I said, go ahead and do this, and they weren't listening, and they come to find out that's what was wrong.
oh, really?
Yeah,
Wow.
Interesting.
it just, I'm a painter and an artist, so when I'm sitting and painting, that's my meditation. So, my mind just like stuff comes in, and if I've got something on or I'm thinking about something prior to that, a lot of times I'm very tuned into the physical body. I sense things about people, things that they're going through physically. I've done a lot of hospice work and stuff, so
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen it. That's very interesting what you
Mm-hmm.
just said about meditating through painting.
mhm.
A lot of people get this impression that to meditate, sit out in nature, completely quiet, and cross your legs and get your little Om symbol going on. But there's so many different ways, even if you're driving in your car for 30 miles and you
Right.
just zone out, that's meditating, no different than painting or playing music.
Everybody has their own process, and you have to figure that process out. I finally discovered that's how I meditated, because through the creative mind, I open up. And another thing, being the creative mind, when I lay in bed at night, recently I've started seeing a lot of geometric designs. I kind of like lose the physical sight, and then I just start seeing these geometric designs coming in and colors washing in, and you know
Yeah. And
Uh,
do you think these are like downloads or visions?
I
What
think
what
they
do you
are.
think that?
I think
Yeah.
I think where my ear will start ringing on one side really loud. Right, last night it was like my ears were just woo, just going crazy. So I
Wow.
think there's something
that's awesome.
going on right now, especially in these times. There's a lot happening on this planet. So
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
if you're sensitive at all, you're gonna A lot of people, I don't think they understand what they're picking up on, maybe, and they just ignore it because we're taught to ignore all our natural abilities. We're taught that
Yeah.
it's weird or it's not. Even now, people still so very closed-minded.
Yeah, unfortunately. We have a lot of abilities. We all have our own special little abilities, but we're not taught to, use that. That's why the education system failed you. You were artistic, you were creative. The education system isn't set up to uplift people like that. It's only, meant to meet 40% of the population that goes to these schools. It don't work for everyone. And they want us to not really be creative because that can cause a lot of problems.
Yeah, because we do it for ourselves and we're channeling
Mhm.
that beautiful, universal energy when we create. And,
Wow.
what's more threatening than that? You know,
Right.
to people that, don't want that. They don't want us to be individuals and channeling that God energy or whatever you call it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, you've had so many different experiences. Obviously, in tune, you're able to see beyond the veil, we can call it. And with these experiences, and then down the road, some of the physical side effects that you went through, you know, did you have any other experiences or things that, have happened with other people?
Um, well, I forgot about this one. When I was 3, I think I was about 3. Um, there was this figure that was standing at the foot of my bed every night, and it was dark, very dark. And this is the first time I realized that I think I was here and I'm a threat to the dark.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it tried like hell to intimidate me. And I told my mother I was afraid to sleep, and so she came in and she stayed with me for like a week. And then morning came. It was like a week, and a morning came, and this thing was at the foot of the bed, but the sun was shining in the window. Now, it wasn't at night. It was a bright morning. The sun was shining in the window, and this thing is at the foot of the bed, and he looks like he's a monk or like a grim reaper, a dark cloak, and he walks around the side of the bed that my mom is on, and he stands over, leans over her, and looks into my face, and he lifted up, and he takes his hands, and he pulls this cape off, and his face was white, pasty white, eyes black, and he grits his teeth, and he goes like this at me. I'm a little baby,
Oh,
and
wow.
I'm screaming, "Can't you see him? Can't you see him?" My mom is like, "I can't see him. I can't see him." But she said she could feel something there, but she couldn't see him. And then all of a sudden he just disappeared, and that was it. But I've never
Wow.
forgotten him. It's like he was threatening me. I figure years later, it must be some kind of threat.
Do you think that was in the paranormal realm of things or an extraterrestrial realm of things? Sounds more like paranormal.
Paranormal.
Yeah, I don't really know. I don't really know anymore. I used to think it was just paranormal because the extraterrestrial thing. I didn't think about it all those years, but I don't really know. Probably paranormal.
That's what it sounds like, a negative energy of some sort. It
Very
wasn't
powerful.
a positive energy wouldn't act like that
Oh
to
no, my
Right.
a
God, this
a
thing was
little
bad.
girl, a little child. That's just cruel, especially like sending you a message. Not even your mother can protect you. Leaning right over her. That's very, sadistic.
Yep.
Wow. Josh, any questions?
I've got to say that's amazing.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot
Yeah, a
to
lot to take in.
witness.
Yeah.
Where like
Especially as a
Surprised I'm
child.
as, normal as I could be, because it's been hard. And it's not like something you can go tell a professional,
Right.
Mhm.
you know. It's
And it's not like Hollywood and movies. It's not like that where, you watch a scary movie when you when the movie finishes, it's done. The
Right.
poltergeist is done, you know? Imagine actually being a child and your whole life seeing these things, and they don't announce themselves. They never do. They're just there. That constant feeling of every time you look over your shoulder, is there going to be something there?
Well,
It
that's what I
dwells over
felt.
you,
Like
right?
I think something has tried to take me out several times. I've come back. I've bounced back through some pretty horrendous things. Um,
How do you protect yourself from these
It's an
negative
awesome
things?
question.
I just ask for protection from Creator.
Yeah.
I do what I can.
And you said before that you started saying no, not giving them consent, right?
Well, yeah, I've learned to do that. Recently, I've learned to say, you need to go.
Yeah.
I have to,
And it,
I have to, I set the rules.
yeah. And you also ask, from the source, the creator, energy, all that, just protect me, help me, and you meditate through your artwork. So I'm sure you're transferring stuff when you're
Right.
doing that as well. If there is anything negative that is trying to attach, you're transmuting it into something else. That's a big help.
And
Wow.
there have been times when I've literally been through some phases in my life, where all of a sudden I just felt like the life energy was completely draining out of me. And I drop weight. I feel like I'm just being just drained. And then I've been through this several times. And then all of a sudden I'll get myself together, and then it's like the energy starts to come back. But it's like there's something constantly, and I don't know whether this is, I mean, this could be extraterrestrial, it could be paranormal, it could be both.
Right.
Hmm.
Um,
Has it
but
got better since your operation?
um, for the most part, but I've been
That's
through a
good.
lot. I've been through a lot of tragedies, and I've had a lot of losses and a lot of tragedies, so I've had to deal with that too.
That takes a toll on you,
Hmm.
Yeah,
and
it
every
has.
now and then.
It really has. But I just something in me. It's just I'm a survivor, and I just don't. I don't. I get knocked down, I get back up, and I'm ready. I just
That's how
keep
you
doing it.
That's
gotta
the way it's
be.
got to be.
Yeah. If you don't, you stay down, and that's not good for anyone.
And
So,
if you let I tell people if they get down, they got to get back up pretty quick,
hmm,
because if you don't, you'll just get complacent and whatever. We're all being bombarded by stuff. You know, um,
absolutely.
but if you're aware of it and you just I don't know, just something inside of me I know is very strong. It has to
Hmm.
be.
And you have we all have this light within inside of us. We all have this light, and it's the best form of protection we could possibly have for
It is.
our inner self, and we can protect it. Unfortunately, it takes us so many years before we learn how to do that. So in the meantime, during our childhood and all of this, we don't have people coming to help us. Fortunately, you had your mother. At least you had one person to kind of, at least believe in you and encourage you. But even then, sometimes we still lack the tools to know how to protect ourselves.
Yeah, she tried to reinforce in me that I was very much light, and that I was, protected. But she died very young. She was 56 when she died. She had cancer. So,
Oh, sorry to
um,
hear that.
it's just like,
Condolences.
hmm.
Condolences. Sorry to
Oh, thank
hear
you.
that.
Yeah, she was a beautiful soul. Thank God I had her, because she gave me a foundation
Hmm.
to protect myself.
Wow.
Doesn't mean
And
it's going to go great. It means you're going to get attacked. But you're going to try to, deal with it.
It's awesome she was able to teach you that, though.
Yeah, she was wonderful.
it's important value for sure. So, Allison, with these experiences, have you had any other experiences pertaining to, the paranormal, extraterrestrial, where it was your experience or you had a group of people and you were experiencing this?
I haven't so much with a group, but recently, like a week ago, I live in Arizona now, but I went up to Prescott, stayed at a B&B, and and there was a lot of activity in that place. And the room that I was in happened to be partially in the ground, and one of the walls was completely in the ground. And there was a lot of stuff going on there. And I said to my friend, I think we're in a vortex.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was seeing these weird faces, like almost like elementals, probably type elemental faces, but then some ET faces. Some the big round heads in the eyes, and the same ones that like to just kind of watch.
Oh.
Yeah, it was up in Prescott. It was on the side of the mountain. Yeah. And apparently there is some kind of vortex where people come to this place. I guess Buddhist, Chinese, or whatever come in there to experience the energy that comes through there.
Yeah, you're not far from Sedona, are you?
Prescott, it's not too far. I'm not sure how many miles. I know where I'm in Phoenix, it's probably about 75 miles.
Okay, yeah, a lot of energy out there.
There's a lot in Arizona.
And you were in this room and you were seeing these, faces and all that. Was anything else going on at that time?
No, I was just feeling like I couldn't sleep at all because there was like so much going on. And I said to my boyfriend, like, oh my God, this place. And I laughed. I said, I think we're on a vortex.
Mm-hmm.
Little did I know we were on a vortex. So, yeah, then I took my phone and I captured. I said, he likes to have proof. So I got the phone out and there was orbs shooting everywhere. And then the wall was just like,
I'm videotaping now. They're everywhere.
Flashing, pulsating?
Flashing, yes, pulsating, yeah.
I'm taping.
Wow, that's wild.
That's awesome.
And I'm sure
What's a trip?
When you're in tune like you are and you pick up on these things, I'm sure when you go to these areas with high electromagnetic fields and vortexes, do you get any physical feelings with all of these experiences going back to when you were a kid to now to that? What sort of physical feelings do you get when you have these experiences?
Well, sometimes I get like really like hyper alert. Sometimes I'll feel anxious. I'll get like just real edgy, like I want to jump out of my skin, or my heart will race. And then other times, depending on the energy, I've been to Indian grounds and I just sobbed my eyes out.
You pick up on residual energy, present energy. And would you describe that scary effect almost like walking through a haunted house? The same,
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah,
it feels like that. But
yeah.
Anywhere where there's energy, that's how it feels, Wow.
Yeah.
A lot of anxiety for sure.
Right.
But it's funny because you're with somebody and they're not there at all with that, so they don't feel anything.
Yeah.
It's like totally normal to them, and they're just looking at you like,
Yep.
That's when I pull out we have these wonderful phones, and we can pull them out in this digital world. It picks that stuff up.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes it more believable to people that don't really have that ability to see or feel it. So
yeah, it's a lot. And Josh, you got anything to add on that, bud?
Before we close out, I definitely wanted to bring up about how she mentioned she uses her artwork to like raise her vibrations and just to get higher tune. it's just amazing, and that more people need to learn about that. It's not just sitting down in nature and just zoning. It's doing stuff that actually physically brings you joy.
Yeah,
Well, that's because
creating.
you're in touch
The,
with
the creative
spirit.
energy.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You're directly connected, and that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to connect, and we've lost that. We've been taught to disconnect
Hmm.
from the time we're little.
Mhm.
Children know things. They're observant. They feel things. They know things. They're naturally open. And then with the minute they open their mouth and start saying that they're experiencing this, they're seeing grandma that's passed away, they're seeing that or that, everybody's saying, oh, that's just your imagination. And then
Mhm.
they just shut it off.
Yep.
What a
That-
tragedy, because
That's your imagination, but Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny's real.
yep, exactly.
Preconditioning. That's what it is. And
Yep.
they have preconditioned us to be cut off from our natural abilities. It's sad.
And it's
Well,
not
they
just
couldn't do that
school,
to
it's
me.
everywhere. It's TV, it's the newspaper, it's
Yep.
breathing the air, it's our food, it's everything.
It's gotten worse. It's just like we can't go on like this. Yeah, we're all connected. When I went through my regression, I learned a lot, and I've been doing this in the last month or so, couple months. I've done 2, and what I has come to me that whether we're on this planet, whether we're in this body, we're not in this body, we are all connected. We're all part of the same source. And I saw this beautiful glistening web of just like energy going through everything. Nothing's left out. No one's left out. Consciousness, we make choices and we have things to learn. We might shut ourselves off from that for a while, but even that shutting ourselves off is a lesson.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is connected.
True. So true.
And when one of us hurts, we all are a part of that.
Yeah, it's all connected.
And these beautiful, there's good and not so good out there, but what I experienced in my regressions is there's some incredibly beautiful beings out there that are on our side, and a lot of us are those beings that came in here into these forms to help.
Mm-hmm. I love that expression. I've used it a lot. The cosmic web of source energy. Literally, it connects. What happens here can happen on a planet light years away. It's all happening simultaneously. Every aspect of everything all at once. And you mentioned your regression. So, when did you have your first regression?
I had it with actually, she was a former classmate of mine. We didn't meet until, about 4 or 5 months ago. She's done 2 regressions on me, and a lot of interesting stuff has come up, and it's given me a lot of answers as to what happened to me previously. And I'm definitely not from here. I mean, a lot of people aren't, but my story, it's just my story. I've been on an all water planet. It's funny because when I saw myself on this water planet, I've got these, I look sort of human, but I've got these, like almost a little dragon looking, but little mermaid looking. And I'm in the water, and there's these beautiful, like almost like beluga type whales, and they're in front of me and they're smiling, and they have this beautiful spiritual awareness. And of all people, I can't swim. And I'm like, I'm on a water planet. I'm in the water and I'm swimming. What the heck? Because I sink like a brick. And it was just such a beautiful experience. The freedom and the spiritual light and all that was so much there.
Wow, sounds kind of, Josh, it sounds like the Nomo from Sirius
Yeah.
C, all water planet.
Sirius, yeah. I think that's, yeah.
Sirius C is an all water planet. There's these beings called the Nomo. They have these little flaps, and like pretty much what you're describing,
Yeah.
almost like a
Well, see,
a
I knew
sea
nothing
dragon
about that
mermaid.
yeah, I didn't know anything about that when we went through this. I knew nothing
Wow.
about it.
That's sounds like what you're describing. And you said in this regression therapy that it kind of shed some light on some of these past experiences. And with that being said, was there anything in your regression that, helped explain a little bit more about the time you saw the Greys walking in your room and you hid, and did
Yeah.
you have any clarity on these
Mhm.
situations?
Apparently, they've been doing this to me. I've been coming in. I got caught up in this sob story they gave me for several lifetimes. They've been doing this. They've been abducting me for several lifetimes. Apparently, I allowed them to do that because they told me that they lost their ability to reproduce. That they couldn't. They needed my eggs. They needed my DNA. This whole thing, and I got very almost like Stockholm syndrome. I got so attached to them, like I needed to help them.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the regression, I realized I had to say no more.
They took advantage of your goodness of
They did.
not wanting to see another species die out.
Yep.
So you offered, your genetics, which that's a good thing to do, but it's like their Trojan horse. It's they don't need to do that. They're just doing it because it's the easiest way for them.
Yep. And I was just easy,
Wow.
yes, an easy target. And in the regression, actually, I confronted them in the regression, and they wanted me again, and I said no, I'm done. And I turned, and I was in a desert, and I turned and I walked away. And when I turned the other way, there were these beings, ancient beings, high dimensional, almost like Native Americans, natives, but they were not, they were like Arcturians that were from this, on this earth in the higher dimensions for eons of time. And they've been here to really help stabilize and keep things going. This is what came to me. And they were dressed in like a lot of feathers. They had feather type things on, and they were so beautiful. And they told me it was time for me. I was ready.
Wow.
When I
Wow,
turned away
awesome.
from these Greys, they said, "You're ready." And it got very emotional because they were so beautiful and they were
Yeah.
so loving, and I felt like I was home.
Mm-hmm. Did they have light coming off of them, like a
Like a shimmer.
beaming, glowing light shimmer?
All I can tell you is their skin was like a bluish,
Mm-hmm.
like a bluish color. They were larger than life. They were so regal in these feathers, and I guess the feathers represent getting away from the confines of being confined to the lower consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And they had these great walking sticks with them, and they were just beautiful. I mean, they were just it just makes my heart just even thinking about them.
Mm-hmm. And going back, an important thing to point out, because earlier it seemed a little unclear, but after this regression therapy, all the issues you had with your uterus inside, that thing that was like a tape all wrapped up in you, you're saying through the regression that you saw that they kind of tricked you into being a part of, providing genetics. And the way these Greys that you're describing do this is by constantly removing embryos, extracting eggs, putting them back inside of you, using certain tools, and doing this constantly while checking up on you, just like your dream with the tubes coming all out of you, doing tests, transmitting, things like that. And it goes back to, this regression where you're finding out that they were using you for that. So it makes it a lot more, likely that, some of your physical side effects were in to do with what they were doing with you, which is awful.
Yeah, it was pretty awful.
And did you have that feeling? Because it sounded like up to the regression, you didn't really get that. But after seeing it with clarity, the whole situation, how did that feel? Was it like getting hit with a ton of bricks?
No, it was empowering. It was, and when I turned away from them, my family was waiting for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had finally said enough. It's like when you're being abused.
Amazing.
You have to just finally come to the point where you just say no more. I'm done.
And move on and be
when you
strong.
do, you open yourself up, and the good is waiting. They're waiting, but it has to be our choice. We have to make these choices for ourselves. We can't be forced into anything. We have to decide for ourselves when we've had enough.
Exactly.
And
Can't wait for a
Mhm.
savior. It's
No.
choice. It's all about choice. And I'm glad it sounds like you've made the right choices for sure.
Mhm.
I'm sure you have. But it must be a lot still to go through all of that, and especially the physical along with the non-physical experiences. It's a lot.
Yeah, it's not something, I mean, it's 62 years of trying to figure all this out. In the meantime, having to deal with stuff when you're not really knowing what's going on. Sometimes you just feel like you're just losing it. There's nowhere to turn, nowhere to hide, but you don't even understand what the real problem is. And it's a matter.
Sometimes it feels like a curse instead of a
I do.
blessing, you know?
Yeah. But I know that I didn't come in here without the ability to deal with it.
Yeah. And we're strong, and
We
we
are more
have
than we
the,
realize.
the strength to overcome these things as they come to us. Incredible. And the person that did the regression, who are they? Are
It's
they someone?
Sandra McEllis. It's McEllis, yeah. And she has a YouTube channel.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We'll
I can,
definitely put something up for everyone to check out.
Yeah,
And
there'll be a link in the bio.
yeah, and Allison, what's the best way for people to get a hold of you and contact you if they want to share something with you or have had a similar experience?
well, they can email me, I guess, would be the easiest way.
Okay, perfect. What's your email?
It's Alison Caltrider at the letter Y, mail.com.
All right, perfect. Thank you. And I'll have that in the description, everyone, along with the podcast and Josh's information, my contacts, all of that. Please, if
All
you
that good
have
stuff.
something, yeah, just, contact her, reach out to her, share your story. If you want to send some encouragement or ask her some questions, I'm sure she'll love to explain, especially about, how to use art and other ways of meditating versus, sitting there out in the middle of a forest. You can do a lot of different things. And Allison, thank you so much for coming on, being brave enough to speak about these things. And I'm sorry about the, some of the physical aspects, the emotional
Mhm.
aspects of your story, but it has clearly made you stronger. And, throughout all these years, some of these experiences back in 1966, the world has changed a lot, but in some aspects, it really hasn't. And I'm so happy
Mhm.
to see that regardless of that, you are remaining strong. You know who you are. You know why you're here. And you're trying to help others in the process of it and spread light and love and, teach people, hey, we're all connected.
We
That's
are.
what it's all about. So thank you so much, Allison. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you
Yes.
for letting me tell my story.
Absolutely. And we will see you all next time. We are the Disclosure. Have a good night, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you so much for watching. Please make sure to set a reminder for up-and-coming videos. If you have had an experience, please email us at orderoflight777@gmail.com or wearethedisclosure88@gmail.com. If you would like to contact our special guests, information can be found in the description. Make sure to check out the We Are the Disclosure podcast radio on Anchor FM. For additional information, socials, and online store, go to the Direct Me link in the description. Whistleblowers, experiencers, and contactees of all backgrounds, now is the time to come forward. Please subscribe, share, and give the video a big thumbs up. We are not waiting for the disclosure. We are the Disclosure. See you next time.